Good day, dear colleagues. My name is Hasanov-Batyrov. I'm partner of Eternal Law Firm and I'm head of compliance practice at the firm. So I'm glad to have an opportunity to share with you a couple of thoughts regarding mitigation of your personal risks and risks of your company with regard to anti-corruption standards. A couple of words about myself. So I am 20 years in legal and compliance profession. I used to work in 6 countries and mostly I was doing legal and compliance stuff there. So now I'm focusing as a partner of a law firm on advising senior managers on their risks with regards to compliance with anti-corruption laws, both local and internationally. The first question which you might have is what anti-corruption standard you mean when I am saying that you have to follow it. To start with, I'll give you a life hack saying that if you are doing business in Ukraine, you first of all have to comply with the Ukrainian anti-corruption law. That's kind of clear. In the very same time, if you are an international company, most likely you will need to do the check. You will need to find out maybe you have to follow other anti-corruption standards. For instance, if you are a company that has connection with the US or you are doing business in the US, you also have to consider the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, the American law which says that any bribing abroad is prohibited. If you have any connections with the UK, you have to follow the British law as well. What is also most important when you are doing business in Ukraine in certain industries, like for example pharmaceutical industry, is to check out maybe there are requirements that are written in the industry standards, like what we have for the pharmaceutical manufacturers, for instance. So the first life hack is check what anti-corruption rules are applicable to your business. So if you find out that you have to follow, for example, the American law, you have to know that the requirements are the following. You have to deploy the compliance program, which is a number of measures on prevention of corruption that you need to deploy in your company. And interestingly, there is no specific checklists or documents that you need to deploy in order to be on the safe side. The thing is that there are about 13 so-called hallmarks of the effective compliance program, meaning that you have to achieve the standard that says that specific measures for specific company might be different. So you have to ensure that you follow those principles by deploying policies, doing risk management, engaging your top management in the way that is working and workable for your specific corporation. So if you are asking me, is it really that important? Why we should care about anti-corruption compliance if we are an international company? The answer is the following. So please have a look on possible penalties and fines that the company, your company, might be subject to paying in case of violation of, for instance, the US Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. So what to do? When we are talking about those principles that the company should follow with regard to anti-corruption, let's start with the culture. The culture means that top management should fully support anti-corruption, zero tolerance to bribery tone at the company. The second thing, you should think about your compliance department or legal people who are doing compliance in your corporation. They should have resources, they should have access to top management, and they should have skills to do this job. Education, you have to train people and they should know what are the rules. Governance, you have to think about effective structure on preventing any non-compliance, you have to think about hotline, you have to think about risk management, you have to think about engagement of managers of middle and low level in all these things. So as you might see in the very bottom of the slide, the regulators are saying there is no check the box approach, meaning no one in this world can tell you what exactly should work in your company. That is why it is very important to combine understanding of external principles and your corporate reality. Things that might work in one company might not necessarily work in another. For instance, one company prefers to have lengthy policies in a very detailed format because this is the way how it works. And another company might say, no, we are an innovative company, we're not having these long, lengthy policies and SOPs. We have a very brief documents, and then everyone has to judge using common sense. So that is why the regulators are saying, guys, just be sure that you are doing effective anti-corruption efforts in your company under umbrella of your anti-corruption compliance program, and unfortunately we cannot say what exactly you should do. So think yourself. However, I have some tips for you, and we will also include these recommendations in the email correspondence which will be attached to this video, so you can have a look what, for instance, you can do to ensure that you are following and you are in compliance with the requested principles. For instance, confidential reporting and internal investigations. And here there are a number of recommendations which you can implement in order to fulfill this standard. What else? The program should work. I used to work in many international corporations, and what I have seen was the scenario when the company was saying, we have something, we have the program, but as a matter of fact, sometimes people were not aware what they have to do or what they should not do. What are the policies, whom they should approach in case of questions. So my recommendation is to make your compliance program effective and make it happen. So let's make it like a fun, engage people, have trainings, maybe you can do contests. Be sure that it really works. In my case, for instance, in my company, people were using Facebook, and it was a good opportunity to engage people and to raise awareness about our compliance efforts using this social network. In other company, which I used to work in this country, in Ukraine, it was an energy corporation, and people were not using any social media at all. So it was another scenario how to implement those requirements, ethics and integrity rules in the company. So you have to check out what exactly works in your particular situation. The thing is that there are not that many people who has experience and skill of doing these things based on their own experience. So please be sure that when you are deploying your compliance program and when you are doing compliance, you have someone who has experience and background, maybe with good stories or sometimes not, as you might see on this slide on the right bottom. Sometimes people are not happy, but still those who was doing that by their own hands has experience of deploying compliance programs in the organization. So please be sure that you know whom you are engaging, and please be sure that those people have not only legal or theoretical understanding, but also practical experience in deploying compliance programs. What risks you might have when you're doing business in Ukraine, and those are, first of all, dealings with so-called third-party intermediaries, or those who represent your company before state bodies like government, like tax inspectorate, like courts. So those who you are engaging with should be checked by you with regard to necessity to find out who is this guy, why we're paying him this sum of money. Does he have skills? The same relates to distributors, for instance, which you are deploying, and in case if they are engaged in state bids, you should know who are those guys. You should know the exact sum of commission that you've been paying, and this sum of commission should be of fair market value, meaning that you have to check out whether this payment is not intended to be a further bribe. And this could be done if you check the market saying, okay, X sum is okay, everybody is getting this type of commission. So this is the way how you can prevent your company and yourself from being accused on corruption, for example, state purchasers of your products. What are the trends? So what we see now? We see that there are a lot of investigations in the Western world by the American and the UK regulators with regards to violations that happen in the emerging markets. So in the very same time, we see that the market needs more specialists. And one more phenomena which I'd like to share with you is whistleblowers. So according to the US law, if a person approaches the US authorities, so in certain cases, he or she might get up to 30% of the fine that will be imposed on the company who was accused in violation of anti-corruption laws. So that made a new trend. People started to approach, even from here, from Ukraine, the US authorities directly or using attorneys in order to inform about misconduct in Ukraine. So my recommendation would be to implement effective compliance programs in order to mitigate the risk that, first of all, you can conduct misconduct, or in case of the investigation, according to the US law, if you have an effective compliance program, you will be given a credit, and in plain words, you will get a discount or decrease from the amount of your fine. We hope that it will never happen to you, so I recommend you to, first of all, find out if your company has a compliance program. If yes, evaluate it, check it, assess it, whether it is really working one or not. And find out if there is a person who is responsible for your compliance in the organization. If there is no such a person, it's not good. If yes, please find out if he works effectively. So we're going back to point number 2, check the effectiveness of your compliance programs. If you still have questions or comments, please feel free to approach me, and I will be glad to address all your inquiries. Thank you for your time. Goodbye.